What's up, MMA fans on YouTube? I'm going to come do UFC 74 post-fight segment here. Sorry for the lapse in time after the event, but wanted to wait a little bit, see if everybody came back clean on their post-fight drug test or urinalysis, what have you, and all the fighters came back clean. There were some side stories to the event. Babalu, who apparently decided to choke Dave Heath into unconsciousness after the fight was called, was released from his contract by the UFC, essentially fired for his antics, and I agree with that wholeheartedly, because that's not the kind of image or MMA has a hard enough time proving the doubters wrong and getting people on board and gaining mainstream acceptance as it is. Large amount of people still view it as a human cockfight and all the stigma that come with MMA. And having something like that happen is just unacceptable. So he had to go. Probably be back in the future, but one never knows. We'll see what happens. Frank Mir was a veteran also that was in big need of a win. Came back and won against Anthony Hardunk. That was a good submission victory. So it's really good to see Frank Mir back on the winning way. A guy that is a really good heavyweight, was the UFC heavyweight champion, never got to defend his title, lost it because got into a motorcycle accident, shattered his leg, couldn't defend it, he was stripped. So what really has been marred by a lot of bad luck, just doesn't come in shape for whatever reason, and really needs to get back on track, and he looks like he's starting to do that against Hardunk, and hopefully he continues to do that. Now onto the card that we did get to see, and it was a really, really good card, another historic night for the UFC in many ways. Onto the first fight we did get to see, Patrick the Predator Cote against Kendall the Spider Grove, winner of the Ultimate Fighter Season 3, taking on participant of the Ultimate Fighter Season 4, the comeback. So this was an interesting fight. A lot of people felt this could be a really awkward match for Grove. Both fighters came out rather aggressive. Both seemed to be really trying to utilize kicks, leg kicks, body kicks, what have you. Kendall went to the head a few times. Cote was able to cover up. They got into some good exchanges. Patrick tried to take Kendall down a few times. Kendall showed some pretty good takedown defense there. It was really impressive. And then, of course, in an exchange, I think directly after that, Patrick came over the top with a big right hand to that vaunted area right up here in the top of the head, side of the back of the ear, the equilibrium, just totally off and totally knocked out, but not knocked out, but floored Kendall Grove. He was did a good job of trying to defend and tie up. Cote was in the mount immediately, started raining down punches. Cote was trying to finish the fight. Grove gave up his back. Cote tried to sink in the rear naked choke, couldn't do that. Grove rolls back over into the mount, and he got finished by Cote with punches, and it's a huge win for Cote. 2 wins in a row now in the UFC after an 0-4 start. So it looks like he's getting on track in the octagon. Got his sea legs under him. Some guys take longer than others. It's the biggest stage in mixed martial arts now. Couldn't say that even 8-9 months ago, but it is now. So we'll see what happens with Patrick. Grove will be back. A lot of people want to say he's finished. His chin is weak. You get hit by Patrick Cote on the butt, and you're gonna drop. Doesn't really matter who you are. He throws a pretty mean punch. So don't think Grove is done by any means. He's a good fighter. He showed a lot of improvement, and he'll be back. On to the next fight we got to see. Precursor, a lot of people felt whoever won this fight was in line for a possible lightweight title shot, especially with Sean Sherk's status up in the air. Don't know if he's going to be stripped. Don't know how the status of his appeal is going to turn out. So every lightweight bout now is huge for every fighter in the UFC. So this one was just as huge, especially Stevenson and Pellegrino doing well at 155. Felt like this fight would have gone to the ground a lot more. Both fighters seemed intent on standing up, throwing punches. Both seemed to be pretty equal, giving as good as they got. When they got on the ground, there were some really good scrambles, really good transitions. I really expected Stevenson to hold a better edge on the ground because I think he's a little bit better wrestler than Pellegrino, but Pellegrino was surprising in the first round. He really showed a lot of moxie, landed a nice punch through his guard when he was on his back and Stevenson was standing up. Doesn't really have to worry about up kicks with Joe because Joe's kind of a short fighter, and came right through, landed a nice one. Also did that in the second, which was a point in the fight where I thought Pellegrino, if he would have postured up and rained down some more punches, he could have possibly finished Joe because he looked like he was really rocked, and I think that was the punch that eventually broke Joe's nose. But nevertheless, it was came down to a war of attrition, and you started to see Pellegrino's cardio wane in the mid to late second rounds. Joe's punches were just more crisp, more sharp. His combinations were more fluid. He was backing Pellegrino up lots of the time. And on the ground, they got in the scrambles, and Joe seemed to come out on top all the time. And in the third round, Joe really turned it on, was able to just finish it off in the judge's mind with superior cardio, and Pellegrino just really waned in that third round. That's the big piece that a lot of fighters seem to lack. It's a very fine line. You can have all the great skills, but if you don't have the oxygen to go along with it, you can't implement those skills. So Stevenson wins a unanimous decision victory. On to the next fight, we got to see another lightweight bout, a big one for a guy who I feel like has been getting a bad rap as of late due to his competition in the UFC or lack thereof. Roger Huerta, a lot of people criticizing him for his fights in the UFC, that more in terms of the competition. It's not really his fault. He takes the fights that are presented to him. He's won those fights impressively, and he's had some good ones. And you really can't take anything away from the guy. Those are the guys that the UFC puts in front of him. So I'm sure he'll be, fighting stiffer competition in the future. But nevertheless, Alberto Crane, Roger Huerta. Crane, one of those all-rounds jiu-jitsu world-class grapplers with marginal stand-up at best. Huerta, the MMA fighter, a complete fighter, good stand-up, good ground. Not quite on the level of Crane's, but this is why they fight the fights. And Huerta showed early his crisper stand-up. He was more rhythmic, was able to hit Crane a few good times. The fight, went to the ground, and Huerta didn't seem to have any problem going to the ground with Crane. And Crane had Huerta in some bad positions at many points during the fight, especially in the first and early second rounds. And Huerta survived all of those positions. A lot of times was able to reverse position and put Crane in some bad spots. So you got to give Huerta a lot of credit. And I gave Huerta the first round just because his activity level was just pushing the fight, pushing the action, was crisper on his feet, was a little more active on the ground. And into the second, you again saw the issue of cardio come into play. Crane just his eye was knotted up from the first round, really good mouse under one of his eyes, was totally gassed, and I was surprised the ref didn't see that in his body language, and was still competing, but just really wasn't in the fight as much as he was in the first round, just because he just couldn't keep his cardio up, and really cost him the fight. Could barely walk back to his corner at the end of the second, and did come out for a third, and Huerta just poured it on. Of course, third round known for the elbows behind the back, looking up into the screen, which is a really good tactic. I'm surprised the fighter hasn't used that before, and was landing elbows when Crane had Huerta's back. And after that, I believe the fight was called after Crane was turtled up on all fours. Huerta was standing over him, landing punches. Then he went to his back, and then the ref stepped in and justifiably so stopped the fight. Crane was completely gassed, had nothing left. Huerta wins, third round stoppage, big win for him. Aforementioned, he'll probably be fighting a much tougher 155er in the future, so big win for Roger Huerta. On to the next fight, we got to see the co-main event, comeback of George St. Pierre off his devastating title loss to Matt the Terror Serra back at UFC 69. Just like he said, just a nightmare scenario for him to have gone through all the competition that he did, to finally beat Matt Hughes the way he did, and then to go in there and lose the way he did to Serra was just a complete worst case scenario come true, versus a guy who had his biggest win of his career on that card, Josh Koscheck, and arguably one of the most boring fights in UFC history. So these two matched up here at UFC 74. I really felt that a lot of people saying that Koscheck was going to beat GSP was kind of shocking. Just the competition that GSP has fought and the competition that Koscheck has fought has been two different worlds. Jay Heron, Carl Parisian, Jason Mayhem Miller, Matt Hughes twice, BJ Penn, Sean Shirk, Frank Trigg. The list goes on and on. GSP is just a stalwart at 170. I'm sorry, and he's fought the best of the best in a very short time. The last 2.5 to 3 years, he's taken on the elite of 170. Matt Serra also. So, and Koscheck, Diego Sanchez, Jonathan Goulet, Dave Manet, Pete Spratt, Ansar Chalangov, I believe. Throw somebody else in there. I think he's fought. Drew Fickett, who he lost against. So he really hasn't fought the level of competition that I felt would have prepared him properly for a guy like GSP, especially coming off a loss. Was very highly motivated, and this fight was rounds 1 through 3 was very reminiscent for me of the fight that GSP fought against Jason Mayhem Miller when he lost against Matt Hughes. He came back at UFC 52, fought Jason Mayhem Miller, and was very much the same. Was using a combination of ground and stand up. Was again in this fight fluid on his feet, confused Koscheck a lot of times. It makes me laugh every time you hear about Josh Koscheck's improved stand up, and he just seemingly wings that overhand right over and over and over again with everything he has, and Joe Rogan just continuously spews the improved stand-up part. I mean, he has gotten a little better, but in terms of stand-up, they're in two different worlds. George St. Pierre and Josh Koscheck. You saw that in the third round with the kicks, the combinations, the transition into the takedown, and George St. Pierre had no problem taking Koscheck down and keeping him there for most of the fight. He was taken down once late in the first, was able to survive on the ground. In the second, Pierre had Koscheck on his back the whole round, was going for a Kimura, landing some good elbows, and I think that really took Koscheck out of the fight. It was really demoralizing for him to have been on his back that long. And going into the third, he seemed confused. Didn't really know what to expect from George, whether it was to stand up, whether it was to go, defend a takedown, because now he's happening to defend takedowns. And you saw that superior athleticism come into play where Koscheck, would have taken anybody down in that instance. He had a single, tried to go into a double, and George just went right out of it and instantly went right into Koscheck's guard. Tried to go back for a heel hook, but the fight was over at that point, and he won an easy, unanimous decision. I was very shocked that two judges gave a round to Koscheck. I don't see which round they could have possibly given to Koscheck, because there's at no point in the fight had he done anything that could have swayed the round his way or anything at all, really. I just think George is a more complete fighter, is just a more natural fighter, whereas Josh Koscheck's a more natural wrestler competing in mixed martial arts, but he has improved his game, did a good job to stand in as long as he did with George, and George, I think, and it's funny because you go back to UFC 53, and this matchup really doesn't mean much other than a swing bout at the time, but it's Matt Serra versus Carl Parisian, and at that time, the match really, at least for the two fighters, really didn't have a whole lot of importance for fans in general. But now it looks like it has a lot of importance, because other than George St. Pierre, which Matt Serra won, Serra hadn't really fought elite 170 competition. He went in and fought Parisian, and like the GSP fight, he rocked Parisian early, had him out, and Parisian was able to survive, win a battle of wills, and push the fight. Eventually, he pushed Serra's cardio, and Serra couldn't keep up, and won a unanimous decision. And Matt has some lackluster fights on the show, and he goes in and wins a crazy first round knockout against GSP, and now all of a sudden people are enamored with this game. And he has a good game. He's a really good jiu-jitsu fighter. He's got good stand-up, but now he's fighting a guy in Matt Hughes who's been in those deep waters, those 4 or 5 round fights, been in some bad positions, some really bad spots, and come out on top. And we're really going to see what Matt Serra's all about now when he has to fight Matt Hughes. I think that's a good matchup for Matt Hughes to win. I just really think that all the smack talk, more so initiated by Serra, has pissed Hughes off, and I don't think that's a guy you want to piss off, or like he doesn't need any more motivation for a fight. But I just really think that Hughes and Serra is going to obviously spawn against the winner. I have a real feeling that they're going to pit GSP up against Carl Parise, and I have no idea why I feel that way. I just don't think that they're going to allow George to sit on the sidelines for 6 to 7 months till after the show is over and after the Hughes-Serra fight is over, and not use him on a card. I really think that they're going to pit Caro up against Serra and Caro against GSP, and have one of those two fight the winner of Hughes and Serra, because Parisian was scheduled to fight Hughes. He pulled out due to injury, and just all those fighters are kind of intertwined in one way, shape, or form. And I really think that it's going to come down to a winner of a Parisian GSP fight fighting the winner of Hughes Serra. Just my opinion. I want to see what you guys take on it. On to the main event now, obviously. Randy the National Couture against Gabriel Gonzaga. Gabriel Gonzaga was the next big thing in everybody's mind, the next great heavyweight, the guy who knocked out Krokop with his own kick, pretty much. Sent him into next week. Randy, the cagey dog veteran, the guy who comes back at 43 years old, fought this fight at 44 years old. Beats Tim Sylvia. How many more miracles did he have under his sleeve? Fighting a young stud like Gonzaga, coming off that whirlwind of momentum against Krokop. And the fight was pretty much decided very, very early. Randy decides to exchange with Gonzaga very early. I was very shocked. I was nervous. That was a real bad strategy for Randy, but was able to rock Gonzaga and get the better of the scrambles. And immediately implemented his pace and imposed his will early, was with the clinching, the elbows, the short punches inside, and huge takedown, reminiscent of what he did to Chuck Liddell in their first fight. Legs up in the air takedown, and smashed Gonzaga's nose, a big huge gash, kind of like the one Alex Karalexis had against Kenny Forian. And that was kind of the end of the fight. The blood was just going into his mouth, into his eyes. He was spitting it out constantly, so he couldn't breathe. And they would get into some exchanges. Couture would hold his own and then immediately go in for the clinch and just control Gonzaga. And then second, Gonzaga did a bit of a weird move. He kind of called timeout and said, "I can't see, my eyes are full of blood." And the ref was like, do you want to fight? I can't stop it. Do you want to go or don't you? And I think it was more or less a communication problem. And the round continued, and Couture easily won the second, and a point was even deducted from Gonzaga due to holding the fence. He wasn't warned. I think those are kind of the Couture rules now a lot of fighters have to be aware of, kind of like the treatment Michael Jordan got in the NBA later on in his career, where he just got all the calls, and no matter what happened, you breathe on him the wrong way, you're going to get a foul on you. And I think that's going to happen with Randy. You're going to see him get a little bit of preferential treatment because of who he is and his status in the game. So I think fighters that do compete against Randy have to be very, very aware that kind of stuff can happen. And into the third, it looked like Gonzaga was also gassed going into that round. Couture really, really pushed the pace. Gonzaga just seemed to kind of wane and just give up on that last takedown attempt and didn't really do much but cover up. Couture just started raining down the punches and the elbows. Was surprised Herb Dean didn't stop it sooner than he did, because Herb is pretty conservative when it comes to stopping fights. He'll jump in rather quickly, and he let it go a little bit longer, but Couture gets the third round stoppage. Huge win for him. Gonzaga's nose has to heal up. I'm sure he'll be back. He's a tough fight for anybody. That guy, he's tough. Showed a lot of heart going as long as he did with his nose smashed like that. Probably couldn't breathe too well either. And now everybody's going to be screaming for Fedor, Couture. It's inevitable. Hopefully that fight will happen soon. Couture did suffer a broken arm. Hopefully that'll heal up. And hopefully the UFC can get Fedor in the fold so this fight can happen. Saw a poll that was done on a mixed martial arts website, and you had 80% of people saying that Fedor would lose to Couture, and that's rather funny. I mean, Fedor is arguably the greatest mixed martial arts fighter of the first generation of MMA. He easily. And as well as Couture is right up there as well. And it's just a fight that you'd have to see play out to predict a winner. And I just don't think there's a lot of people, especially new fans, that have seen the body of work that Fedor has done in the positions that he's been put in, and the awkward, ways that he's had to, persevere to win fights. The fighters that he's fought and dominated, pretty much just dominated, like Randy has. When Randy goes to a decision, he dominated the fight and won. And very much like Fedor, if Fedor was going to the scorecards against Krokop, against Nogueira, it was very, very obvious that there was no choice but the Fedor won the fight, and that would be an amazing fight. Similar but different styles, the Russian versus the American. It would be, a dream matchup, and one that I feel like they have to put together and do whatever it takes to do that. Hope you guys enjoyed the segment. Sorry if I rambled a little bit. I wanted to, get some thoughts out about potential, GSP Parisian 2 to fight the winner of Hughes and Serra. I just don't think they'll keep GSP on the sidelines that long, as well as haven't seen Parisian scheduled for anything. So it really looks like they might put that matchup together, and the Couture Fedor, hopefully that'll happen. So until then, you guys have a good one. Take care. Got UFC 75 coming up, so got to do predictions for that. Until then, you guys take care.